left one rival to the other, the Dragons to the Sharks, which you're not supposed to do. But anyway, how are you feeling being here at Shark Park ahead of their new season?
Oh, I'm so excited to be here, and it was a really, really hard decision, to be honest. I waited up for a very, very long time, but in the end, I just kind of decided I need a bit of a change, and yeah, the Sharks really offered me that, and I'm so pumped to be here and in part of the inaugural women's team. Yeah, I love the Gong. It's really home for me. My whole family's still down there, so I absolutely love it. And growing up, I kind of was just one of those kids that played everything, but really stuck with surf club and touch footy. They were kind of like my two faves. And yeah, just kind of was like a happy-go-lucky kid, so competitive all the time, just wanted to kind of play everything. And yeah, I just have happy memories of childhood. How'd
you go in the surf club stuff? I imagine beach flags, beach sprints, it looks like it's your go.
Yeah, definitely into the beach events. Didn't really go near the water that much. But yeah, I actually did that competitively up until 16. So kind of, yeah, really love those days.
Tonnegato, Italian. How does the heritage fit in?
So Dad was born in Italy. He migrated to Australia, I think he was about 8. And settled down in Wollongong and actually grew up next door to my mum. So they were kind of childhood besties and went their separate ways and then kind of rekindled in their 20s. So
wow.
Yeah, my grandparents still live next door to each other today.
Wow, what a love story.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's you, obviously a product of that, and the siblings. How does the family dynamic look?
Yeah, so I've got 3 brothers, 2 older, 1 younger, so I'm lucky number 3. But it's actually interesting, so none of them played footy until after me. Right. So I was the first one in my family to kind of ask Mum and Dad to play league or a contact sport, and at that time, you know, they looked at me and they were like, no. And then I asked my nonna, my grandparents, and they said absolutely no, and I went away and kind of thought about it, and then I went back a few weeks later and was like, no, Mum, like, I'm serious. And they said, okay, you've got to get headgear, shoulder pads, mouth guard. Not allowed to play unless you have all of that stuff.
So you were tougher than your brothers, is that fair to say?
Always. No, we always kind of had fights and things like that, and I was just one of the boys. Wanted to wear their clothes, wanted to kind of do whatever they were doing. I hated Barbie dolls, hated all that stuff. I just loved Action Man, Mighty Ducks, like anything like that.
So rugby league, when you're first allowed to play it, how old were you?
16 I played, yeah, so I didn't play as a junior or anything, and at 16 I played touch with Sammy Bremner actually, and she said, we're starting a team in Helensburgh, does any of you girls want to play? And I said, yeah, like I'll be keen to play, so that's kind of how I got into it.
What was it about rugby league that appealed to you as a sport?
I grew up watching it, like I always loved watching the footy. I was kind of interested around the time when the Storm were like the main team through that era with like Billy Slater, Cameron Smith. That era was when I was kind of a bit of a footy fan. So I just loved watching them. You know, I was always like, Dad, let's put the footy on, and otherwise they wouldn't have even had it on. So just kind of always watched them, and then I was like obviously pretty good at touch. Like I loved touch, played rep touch for years and years and years. So yeah, I think when the opportunity came up, I just kind of jumped at it.
It was a pretty quick progression, right? Because you start playing at 16 and then, 2 years later, you're playing at a World Cup for Australia?
Yeah. I mean, it was a different kind of time back then. Like, the game's not what it is today, or wasn't what it is today, but it was kind of a transition between, like, the older girls that had paved the way for us, and then there was, like, you know, Sammy and I that were, like, these young, fast, like kind of like a different style of footy. So we were kind of that like transition period, and yeah, ended up playing the World Cup. I think I was in Year 12 still. So went over to England for that and played in that World Cup, which was, yeah, super fun.
Yeah, how was that experience?
You know, I was such a little baby. I was so in my shell back then, like I don't think I really spoke to anyone. I just had like my few kind of Helensburgh teammates that I kind of would have hung out with. But yeah, I was just like a really quiet, little tiny girl. I was probably like 10 kilos lighter than I am now. So I was just quiet and just happy to be there, really.
Where did rugby sevens come in at that point? Were they running at the same time? Were you playing both sports?
Yeah, pretty much. I think I got kind of scouted to play while I was playing touch, also in might have been year 11 or 12. And I was pretty hesitant to go at the start. You know, I was like, no, I just want to play league. And then it had just got announced to be in the Olympics, so they were kind of like really pushing for participants. So yeah, I started playing at school and then ended up playing for Australia as well while I was in year 12. So that was, yeah, a pretty big year. I went and debuted over there in Dubai at a World Series event and then got a contract on the table that year as well.
So how did you pass school with all that going on?
I don't know, actually. I was really, really studious, actually. Probably a little bit of a nerd, but my parents said they never had to ask me to do homework. I would just get everything done. Just kind of came home and just would smash it all out, go to training, come back, sleep. That's just kind of how I functioned, so yeah.
That's busy. Now I'm getting tired just thinking about that much work. How do you go as a talker on the field? Are you naturally vocal?
Yes, I think it's something that I've kind of developed over a few years, but now I am, and when I'm confident, it definitely comes out. And being at fullback, you know, some of the girls kind of tell me to stop yelling at them, and I use their full name, and they kind of always give me shit for it. But yeah, just kind of got to boss them around and tell them where to go.
And you're changing positions, is what I hear on the grapevine. So you're going from fullback to 5'8". A lot of people do that these days in the modern game. But why did you want that transition?
It was kind of something I tossed up and kind of floated to the Sharks, and when I spoke to them, they were like, yeah, 100%, like, we back you all the way. And I kind of just want to get my hands on the ball a little bit earlier and a little bit more consistent, and I think 6 kind of allows me to do that. And towards the back end of the game, you know, I found myself kind of organising or wanting to organise and kind of set things up for myself, but I kind of struggled to do that at the back, so I think at 6 I'll be able to do that a little bit more.
Go, Tale, we're going, we're going, we're going. Square up for me, Tale. Take it, Tale, now.
But you give away a little bit of weight, but that doesn't concern you. Like, in terms of it, you probably, you know, 10, 15 kilos lighter than some of the girls that are coming out.
Yeah, there's some big second rows going around now. But yeah, no, I'm pretty confident and I'll have a really good group of girls around me.
Good job. Lovely.
In terms of the rugby sevens, like, you weren't that keen on it at the start. You were more a league girl. You wanted to stay with rugby league.
Yeah, I did. I kind of just loved league, and as I said, you know, watched it on TV all the time. We've never really watched rugby as a family, and I actually viewed it as the game where people played stacks on. That's what, like, I referred to it as. But yeah, I kind of knew it was going to be big with the Olympics, and at the time there was nothing in comparison to league. Like, we were just playing local club for Helensburgh. There was no talk of NRLW. Nothing on the table. State of Origin was just like the interstate challenge. It wasn't really even recognised. So kind of had to, like, weigh up both options as well. Like, rugby were offering contracts. I mean, they weren't very much, but kind of, yeah, had to weigh it all up and ended up going down the sevens route.
The professionalism, the full-time professionalism of rugby union, like, how much of a game changer was that for you in terms of physicality, skills, mental application of the game, all of it?
Everything, yeah, everything. I owe everything to sevens. It really was like the epitome, I think, of female contact sport. We were in an environment where we were able to train full-time. Just probably like the NRL men train today, that's exactly how we trained. So I had 8, 9 years of full-time gym, I think, which made a massive difference to, like, my body, resilience, tackle breaks, like, everything like that. And then just, like, a lot of it is the emotional and maturity, I think, as well as, like, the education and kind of how I perform on the field. A lot of that has to do with sevens and what we went through. I mean, you have to be so fit to play sevens, and I remember just, like, my attitude, you know, I used to freak out about doing fitness and, like, pretty much cry and work myself up into such a state before fitness, whereas now I look at it and I'm like, hell yeah, like, let's go.
Tonagato onto the field. Tonagato, 3 tries in the opening game, and now's going to get a chance to open up in the backfield. She's so quick, Emma Tonagato. Make it 4 on day 1 for Little M.
What about the actual nature of it, the travelling around? And a pretty unique experience. Like,
It
not
is.
even the full-time NRL guys, when you talk about, they don't get to travel like that.
Yeah, it's incredible. It really is. It's such a good lifestyle, and I think they have 8 stops on the World Series now, so 8 different tournaments around the world, and honestly, it's just incredible. You get to like live and travel with your best mates and play at like the most amazing locations, and on top of that, you have Olympics and Commonwealth Games as well. So it really is incredible.
Is there anything that stands out when you think about your time travelling, Olympics aside, like of experiences, that places you went that jump out to you in that 8 years?
I think one really special time was we played a tournament in Brazil in Sao Paulo, and then at the end of the tournament we went to Rio and just had a bit of a look around because we knew we were going to come back there for the Olympics. And it wasn't a holiday, but it was like a little bit more relaxed because we didn't have a tournament coming up, so we kind of got to explore everything and like be a bit of a tourist, but it was kind of on tour still, so it was all paid for and everything like that. We got to like party a little bit, so that was like a really, really special time. Just kind of being able to visualise us being there the following year for the 2016 Olympics.
Yeah, let's talk about that then. Going to Rio, like what was that like as an experience for us mere mortals who will never experience being an Olympian?
Yeah.
What is it like?
It's so crazy because like we just didn't know what to expect. No one had ever been before. Like we were the first time Rugby Sevens was in, so we couldn't really talk to anyone that had done it or anything like that. We kind of just went in and kind of just freestyled it really, but it was so incredible, and it was honestly the best experience of my life. Like at the time I lived with 2 of the girls that were in the team, and we were all best friends, so it was just like going on holiday with your best friends, and then we won an Olympic medal, and then it was just like crazy, and we just kind of like blew up, and no one really knew what Sevens was, and then all of a sudden, you know, we're at like the front of newspapers and like just everything like that, so it was just hectic.
Do you catch any of the superstar athletes around the village, or they're not really kind of like the real superstars?
Kind of. We saw like Usain was on his balcony when we went past, so we saw him kind of, he always loved to show off everybody, so he was in the village. I was actually making toast one day in the food hall, and I like looked next to me and it was Rafael Nadal.
Wow.
So I saw him, which was cool. I was like too starstruck to even like ask for anything. I was just like, and then he looked at me and then he just like got mobbed straight away.
What was Rafa doing in the...
Making toast.
Making toast,
Yeah,
okay.
we were both making toast.
And obviously to top it up, you win a gold medal. Do you remember the pressure and expectation? Because you say that people didn't know a lot of you guys, but you were favourites, and people, I remember getting up in the morning to watch it, hoping you guys would win. So like, did you feel that expectation that people thought you would win the gold medal?
I feel like we probably thought it ourselves. Well, I actually kind of knew that we were going to win like that. We just had this like quiet confidence about us, and like I remember just being like, yeah, like when we go to Rio we're going to win, and after we get our gold medal we'll do this, and like it wasn't like a cocky confidence, it was just, I don't know, we just kind of knew it, and it was just like this really cool aura in the teams.
When does it sink in? Like, is it immediately after, or is it when they put the gold medal on your neck? How does it...
There was this really cool moment actually, and we all kind of like lined up, all our families were in one spot at the end of the stadium, we all lined up and like linked arms, and I remember like in that moment, like that's kind of when I realised, and I remember like crying, there's like a photo of it, and I like looked, like I think I had my best friend like either side of me, and I was just like, oh, heck, like we've won. And then I looked up and yeah, my family were up there, and I like got to the front, they like pulled me up into the stand, and I think that was, they were all crying, well they were drunk, but they were all crying, and seeing my brothers cry and my dad, I think that was like really special.
That's pretty cool. Where's the gold medal now?
It's actually in my bedside table, just in its box.
Okay.
Nothing special.
No, not hung up, not at mum's house or anything.
No, I feel like it's probably something that I'll look back and reflect on when I'm older. I feel like now, because I'm still playing and I'm still young, I'm kind of just like, oh, I feel a bit awkward about it sometimes. Probably I wish I was a bit prouder of it, but yeah, I think when I'm older, that would be something that I'll definitely display proudly.
In the years after that, you kind of had a few shoulder issues, didn't you? And a couple of reconstructions, so that was kind of coming off the high, and then it's back to the reality of professional sport.
Yep. Yeah, I've had 3 shoulder recos on my right shoulder, so 2017 and 18 back-to-back seasons. So that was really tough. And then I got all the way through till 2021, and then did it again in February. So I had to come back for the last Olympics within 4 months after a shoulder reco. So that was a lot. There was definitely a lot of thoughts of like quitting and retirement and stuff in that, but still going today.
So you were struggling mentally and physically leading into that 2021 Olympics?
Yes, definitely. I'd just kind of been doing it, well, I think it was like 7 years at that time, and sevens is so grueling, and you kind of just have to be on all the time. Like, you go to training knowing that you're just going to get bumped every day. So it really does require a lot. And I also made the decision to move back home to Wollongong. So I was like driving up to the city every day. So that was a lot as well, which was completely my choice, but it kind of just contributed to everything. And my body was just kind of not handling the load, I think. And mentally, I just kind of lost that drive to like put myself through the training that was required. And then when I got injured, I was just like, oh, I'm done. I'm done. And I remember sitting at home because I couldn't drive. So like they gave me a few weeks off and I just was like sitting at home and I was like, oh, I don't even think I'm going to try and come back. Like, I'm just going to stop now.
Gatto goes left and right and then tries to burst through the tackle. She don't burst through. She will not catch the speedster. Emma Gatto. That is individual brilliance.
Your entire time travelling, playing sevens, you're actually also doing a university degree, right?
Yeah.
Took about 7 years to get done.
It did, yeah. So I'm an occupational therapist, did a degree in that. And yeah, as you said, took 7 years of part-time and had to do my placements as well. So I had to kind of fit in a 9-week placement at the end there. So yeah, lots of dedication and hard work, but so glad I did it.
There's 1 Olympics, 2 Olympics, and then are you pretty content you knew then, I'm done with rugby sevens?
So I kind of, as I said, had been through that little bit before of like doubting whether I wanted to keep going, but I just kind of hadn't really said anything to the girls. And there was a moment after the final and we like carried one of the older girls off Shannon Parry on our shoulders because it was her last sevens game. And like I turned to one of the girls in the team, Dom, and I said, I was like, oh, I think this is my last game too. And she was just like, what?
Well, how did the Dragons come about then? What was the conversations there?
I'd kind of always watched the growth of the NRLW and thought, oh, I really want to play. Like, I was kind of like jealous and I was like, I reckon I would give it a damn good crack.
You kind of bridged 2 generations of rugby league players. Like when you left, you were there with, as you said, some of the older women, the trailblazers, the ones that did it for no money. What did they teach you, first of all? Yeah,
I think they just made me really appreciate where I was, I guess. Like, they were telling stories of how they'd had to pay for things and had to sacrifice their jobs and how they'd fought so hard to get where they were. So I think that was really inspiring and made me really appreciate. Well, even at the 2013 World Cup, we didn't pay anything to go. We didn't get paid to go, sorry, but it was free. And that was like a huge step up. So even seeing how appreciative they were of that to like where we are now is just incredible.
And when you sit here now and you see young women come in, like say a Jessie Southwell or someone who's going to be around for the next 15 years, like, how crazy is it to think what women's sport might be done
I'm jealous.
by the time she's done?
I know. I'm like, oh, I wish I was like 16 now. Just to think of like, they could be, you know, equal to the men when they're older. Like, that is so incredible. And they won't have to work. They'll just have footy as their job. And I just think that's awesome. And I'm jealous. I wish I was like 6 even.
So when you came back to the NRLW, like, you took to it like a duck to water. Was it that professionalism that made it just so seamless, that transition?
I think so. Physically, I was in a really good position. Like, it's hard to say without like saying it, but like in the gym, you know, like I was kind of like ahead of everyone. Even though I was a fullback, I was like really strong in comparison. I was like fit, I was fast. Even before my first game, you know, everyone was like, are you nervous? Are you nervous? And I was like, nah, like I'm just pumped, like get me out there. So I think even like that maturity and like that reaction to the game in comparison, like if it was a few years earlier, I would have been shitting my pants and like very, very scared, so.
Is the biggest thing in terms of learning the game when you picked it back up, what was it? Was it the tackling? Was it the wrestle? How did it change?
Yeah, it was so different. I think a lot of it was the defence. Like, I remember doing contact and would just like let go and like roll away and like get up and go to marker, and everyone was like, what are you doing? Like just stop and like slow down and like make it a slower tackle. And I was like, okay, so like that took me a while, as well as probably like I just wanted to play really early in the tackle count, and I was like, just spread it wide, like there's so much space. And you know, Sally was like, just go in a cycle, and I was like, what do you mean? Like if we just pass it that way, we'll be around them. And that probably took me a while to get into like, okay, like we don't have to play straight away, we can like build into it.
Jess Surgis getting on the outside, putting on the afterburners. Jess Surgis is burning away. Tonegato around the legs. What a tackle from Emma Tonegato. One of the tackles of the season.
What about winning a Dally M in your first season? How did that feel? To share it with Millie as well, but like, to be voted the best player in the game.
Very, very honoured, I think, and very, very special. You look at all the people that have kind of won that award earlier, and every single person's incredible. And to share it with Millie, I think, was very special. She's somebody who I think is so talented and works so hard.
We've had Millie on this show, and we did talk about this, but you did show a little bit more restraint on the night than Millie did, and she was probably, she accepted that.
Oh my gosh. She was like, we were on the stage and she whispered in my ear, she goes, I'm so wasted. And I was like, I'm sober as, because we had the grand final still.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then in every interview I could just start to see her get a little bit worse and like start slurring. And then she would just like talk absolute dribble, and then it would go to me who was like dead sober. But yeah, she was classic.
That was very good. One of the great moments.
Shipping it again to Brigginshaw. What a great pass. Australia go through, and that's a walk-in for the Gillaroos. Emma Tonegato getting her name on the score sheet right underneath the post.
To go to another Rugby League World Cup, almost 10 years after your first one, like, did you soak that in a lot more when you went to the UK last year?
Yeah, I did. It was a very different experience. I mean, I didn't get named initially. And then Tamika pulled out, and then the coach called me back and said, actually, can you come? And then I was a little bit like, no, I'm not going, like. And I was working full-time as well, so that was like a whole nother issue. But you know, again, I really took the time, reflected. I called Kylie, actually, and I was like, what do you think? What should I do? She's like, just go, like, you've got nothing to lose. Like, go and show them that you should have been picked in the first place, kind of thing. And ended up talking to my bosses at my job, because that was, another issue, and they were really, really supportive. And in the end, I decided to go and have no regrets. It was an incredible experience.
And playing at Old Trafford in the final, in front of what would have probably been 40,000 fans at that point. Like, that must have been a pinch me moment after 10 years before.
100%. That was really, really incredible. And even going to do captain's run there and just like taking a moment, like standing in the middle of the stadium and looking up and like seeing, I think it says like the Field of Dreams. Like that was incredible. And seeing how many people actually came out early to our game was like another thing. And like the crowd was so loud and inspiring, and it was so special.
And Australia are World Cup champions for 2022.
A fun celebration afterwards, I imagine.
Very fun, very fun.
Southwell. Now Tonegato outside. Chapman goes in.
Well, coming off the back of an Origin series for the girls,
Yeah,
a two-game
first time.
series. Yeah. How did you feel about the two games? It was an odd one, wasn't it?
It was. And I feel like we're in a bit of an awkward space where we're super, super grateful for being where we are today, but we're still really, really pushing for what we deserve and the future and equality and all that kind of stuff. So, as I said, you know, kind of grateful for the two games, but it was a little bit of a kind of weird ending to the series.
Yeah, what was that like to feel like you celebrate a win of the game but not the series? Like, it was a bit strange.
Yeah, it just felt like we lost everything, to be honest. But, I mean, I really would have loved a decider, and we kind of knew we had to win by 9 and we didn't quite get there. But, I mean, I was proud of the performance we put in and being able to bounce back after that first game. I don't think any of the players on the field were happy with that. So I think a big thing for me was just being happy that we put a good display of women's rugby league on.
What about the crowd in Game 2 especially? Like 18,000 That's pretty special, a standalone game. And what stood out for me was it wasn't just, you know, little girls or anything. It was families, Queensland, just wanting to come and watch an Origin game. Even though they were cheering for the other team, yeah, it was really, really loud and intense. And yeah, it was one of the best crowds I've played at, actually. But you weren't happy with the scheduling in terms of game one because you didn't think it was probably the best advertisement for the women's game. They hadn't played leading into that. Exactly, yeah. So we finished up our Harvey Norman comp, I think about April, and then we didn't play until June. So we had a few weeks there where we were training by ourselves, obviously not playing, and I think that really showed in game one. There was like, you know, 15 errors per team, and the game was so stop-start, and I was a little bit embarrassed of the game. I mean, we couldn't really do much about it, like it is what it is, but yeah, yeah, I think something needs to change. Go! Let's look ahead to this season. Obviously, the NRLW now expanding, 10-team competition. Like, how exciting for the game again to take another big step. It is, it is. I think initially a lot of the girls were a bit hesitant on the jump to 10. I think we were really pushing for 8 because we thought we felt as though we really put a good product out there at the end of last year, and we were just worried that we were going to maybe spread the talent too thin too soon. But I think after the Harvey Norman and the Origin and everything like that, I think it is a really good decision, and looking across the teams, and you can see, I think every team will be competitive, and that's a really good sign. And I think it just allows more clubs to have a presence and more fan base and everything like that, and hopefully inspire more girls. It also gives you more time to build into a season, doesn't it? It does. You don't lose 2 games and suddenly you're out of the finals contention. Exactly, exactly. I think we have way more opportunity to kind of reflect and build, and if, like, you know, a strategy or a team strategy isn't working, we can kind of change it, and we still have time for that, which I think for the first time we can do that, which is cool. Just finally for yourself, what would it mean? I mean, you've won everything there is to probably win in women's rugby league, except an NRLW premiership. What would it mean for you to do that with the Cronulla Sharks? So special. I mean, part of the reason I came to Cronulla was to be part of the inaugural team, and I was really excited about the opportunity of being part of a new club and getting to shape the program and kind of having that impact on the community and the club. And I think to top it off with a premiership would just be so special and incredible, and we are so excited to kind of take the field, and we've got that first round home game, which is going to be amazing. Emma, we are so excited to watch you play for the Sharks this season. Thank you so much for joining us on Face to Face. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks.